Hi, everyone, and welcome back to these What's New in Beekast webinars. My name is Clara. I am the Marketing and Communication Manager here at Beekast, and today I cannot wait to show you all of the new updates that we have planned in Beekast today. First thing that I want to do is just make sure that everyone can hear me, see me. I always start this way. So make sure to give me a thumbs up in the comment section. We can interact in the Livestorm chat, of course. Tell me that you can hear, see, and even see the presentation that I'm sharing with you today. So just give me a thumbs up. Hi, everyone. I see people joining us. That's great. And I see that apparently everyone can hear and see me just fine. So that's perfect. We're going to be able to start. So the first thing that I want to draw your attention to when we get started in all of these updates that we've gone, that Beekast has seen in the past week, is that we're going to start with our workspace. And in Beekast, a lot of you may have noticed that what we've been trying to do is really make it easier for you to create a session. So we want to make sure that there aren't too many steps to this. We want to make it easy. We want to make it super quick. And what we decided to do was just to make sure that there aren't as many clicks as there used to be. So before, when you created a session in Beekast, you always had to decide on, was it going to be in facilitator or participant mode, and what was the title going to be, and did you want to personalize a couple aspects of it right away, for example giving a title, and even, for example, let me show you right here on my screen, you used to be able to even decide and customize what this little square here was going to look like. And that was all great, and of course these are important features that we have kept. But when you're just trying to start working on your session, you want to start adding and creating content, that can be a lot of steps before actually getting into your session. And so what we decided to do was take these steps away, bring them after later on in your user experience, and really help you get to create a session in one click. So now let me show you right now when I'm in my workspace here today. I'm going to go ahead and click on create a session. You can see it right here at the top right side of my screen. So I'm going to go ahead and click on this button. All I have to do now is decide on creating a session or a master session. Now, I'm going to go ahead today and create a normal session. For those of you who aren't familiar with what a master session is, I highly recommend you check out. We have a webinar dedicated to the master clone feature in Beekast. It's a really cool feature that can be super useful for people looking to do, for example, training sessions, or really wide sessions at a larger scale. Today, let's just focus on normal sessions. So go ahead and click on this session. And there you have it. In really just 2 clicks now, I am officially in my session and I'm ready to start creating. Now, I know what you're thinking. What happened to deciding between facilitator and participant mode? Now, in Beekast, you have these 2 slide navigation modes that are made available to you. And what I want you to remember here, and this is one of the biggest changes in our latest batch of updates that I'll be presenting to you today, is that now when you create a session, it will by default always be in facilitator mode. Now, let's look into this. What is facilitator mode? Facilitator mode is what we like to call synchronous mode as well. They're the same thing. When you're hosting a session in facilitator mode, that session will be synchronous, which means that, let me click right here on settings. You have a quick definition of this. This just means that as a facilitator, as the owner of the session, you have complete control over slide navigation. You're the one that decides when to take your participants to the next slide. Participants don't have control over this. You're the one that decides when to launch an activity. You're the one that decides when to close an activity, etc. Whereas in asynchronous mode, so participant mode, here your participants have control. This is great for self-learning sessions, for example, where you want your participants to have full autonomy over the session. They can go from slide to slide, really navigate at their own rhythm, and have complete control over the session. So keep that in mind. This hasn't changed in Beekast. You still have those two slide navigation modes, but by default, your session will now always be in synchronous mode. Of course, you can change this now super easily. So let me show you again how I did this. I simply have to click on my session settings, and in settings, the first thing to pop up, or in the overall like general section of my settings, which is just an overview of my session. And as you can see, it's really hard to miss. You can see that you are in synchronous mode. So this is just by default, but now let's imagine that you want to go to an asynchronous mode. You want to have a presentation, a Beekast session that your participants can navigate freely. Well, go ahead and just click on asynchronous. And when you click on asynchronous mode, you can see that you can now decide if your participants can go back within the presentation. This means that they can, while they go through the slides, they can also have the opportunity to go back to previous slides. Or sometimes when you're doing a test, for example, and you want to quiz your participants, you don't want them to be able to go back on previous content. You want to make sure that they're going through the content and answering the quizzes chronologically. So you have this little slide you have this little slider, that pops up, and you get to decide if you want it to be in asynchronous mode. Now, when you decide to switch to asynchronous mode, all you have to do is click on save to do this. And just keep in mind that what will happen when you switch from synchronous to asynchronous is your session and activity status will be reset. So let's imagine you created content in your session, you added a quiz, a survey. Well, when you switch to another slide navigation mode, those surveys, if they've already been completed, you've had participants come in, engage, they completed the survey, they did the quiz, well, all of those results will go back to zero. They'll be wiped. So keep that in mind. You may risk losing results or data that you had in your session if you decide to switch to another slide navigation mode. But also, as long as there has been no particular activity in your session. So for example, nobody has joined in on a survey, nobody has answered a quiz yet. Whether you go from synchronous to asynchronous, you will keep your content. So if you created a survey in synchronous mode here, and you decide to go to asynchronous mode, your survey will still exist, just the results will be wiped. So that's a good thing to have in mind. Also keep in mind that the challenge activity does not exist in asynchronous mode. This is because it's an activity that is completely designed for synchronous participation. It's made for people who are joining in and playing live. So this is just, the challenge activity is really made for the synchronous mode. So just keep in mind that if you do have a challenge activity and you decide to switch to an asynchronous mode, that challenge activity will be deleted. But that's the only content piece that could be deleted when you switch from one mode to asynchronous. So here I am. I'm going to go ahead and switch to asynchronous mode and click on save. And as you can see, it double checks. It makes sure that I really want to go ahead and switch to another slide navigation. And I can go ahead and click on reset. And there you have it. I am now in asynchronous mode. All right, I hope that was clear for everybody. I'm just going to check very quickly here on my other screen if there are any questions. I have the live chat, and I can see that this does look clear to everyone. I'm getting some thumbs up, which I think is a good indicator that everything is clear and okay for everyone. But yeah, just keep in mind, this is really one of the main changes and I would say most important updates in what I'll be presenting to you today. It's the fact that facilitator mode is now the default setting on any session. All right, so now that we've gone through that, I now want to show you a really, really cool update that we decided to do. So this is real-time activity preview. Now, before, when you decided to create an activity in Beekast, you would go ahead and click on add a slide. This hasn't changed. You have all of your activities ready to go, ready to be set up. And let's say you decide to do a reading activity. Well, as always, you would have, oh, my Wi-Fi may be a little slow today. Make sure to tell me if you can't hear me anymore. But as I was saying, in your rating activity, you would be able to give your rating a title. You decide how many stars people are going to rate this on, and then you would click on save. And that save button is when you actually get to see your activity, because here, as you can see, I'm setting up my activity, but in my central space right here in my creator space, I can't see anything yet. My activity is in created, so I don't really know what it's going to look like. And this can sometimes be confusing when you're starting out in Beekast because you don't really know what our activities are going to look like. And it's hard to project yourself and say, okay, this is exactly what I need. This activity should look like this, and to really understand and have a better user experience overall. So you would click on save, and then you would have your activity show up. Of course, I'm the owner of this session, so keep in mind that I get the results, but for a participant, they would have this pop up. And that's when you can actually see what your activity looks like. Now, what we've decided to do is create the activity preview and add this as a feature to 3 activities right now. So this is something that I'm going to show you. It's available on the word cloud, the quiz, and the survey. So let's take a look right now. When I click on add a slide, word cloud, quiz, and survey, these 3 activities now have the activity preview feature. So let's say I want to create a quiz. I'll go ahead and click on quiz. And as you can see, this is such a nice surprise. Now you don't have nothing in the middle of your screen. You don't have that white space where you just have to kind of guess what your activity will look like. Here, in real time, we're going to be able to create our quiz and see what this will look like in the central part of my screen. So let's say we ask a question. I'll just say question here. Of course, this right column where you get to set up your activity, nothing has changed here. We've kept it super simple for you. You still have all your instructions. You get to decide on the activity format. You also get to decide what this activity is worth because it's an evaluation activity, the quiz, which means that when people get a right answer, they get to score points. So let's say that this question will be worth 3 points, and then you get to add choices. So answer A, let's say answer B, and finally answer C. So now I get to say maybe that answer B is the right answer to this quiz. And then I can go ahead and just make sure that all of the other settings are good for me. And once I'm ready, as you can see in real time, I've actually seen this change with me. So if I actually decided to change my question, there we go. Sorry for the lack of inspiration in my questions, but as you can see, we now have the questions popping up here in real time, which allows you to preview what your activity will look like. Now, this is great. I think it really helps users understand the activities better. They get to create in real time. And the cherry on the cake is that we now have autosave for these 3 activities. So survey, word cloud, and quiz. And as you can see, I no longer have that save button. So I don't have to save anymore because actually, when I close this, my activity is ready to go. It's all set up. So I no longer have that moment where I can forget to save, go to another activity, and then I have lost everything that I've created. I've lost all my content. This can no longer happen in these 3 activities because you have autosave that's set up. And so now your activity, once you've closed that settings panel on the right side, your activity is ready to go. It's all set up, which makes it so much easier for you and your participants. So now, I know that this may seem a little strange when you're starting out. I think the first thing that everyone will be asking me, and I can actually see it in the comments, is, okay, but how do I edit my activity once it's closed? For example, here, as you can see, I no longer have my editing panel. Well, it's super simple. Everything is now here directly on the slide. So let's say you want to edit your quiz. You go ahead and click on that little pencil right here. And by clicking on that little pencil, you now have your set settings panel that opens back up that right column right here. Let's say I want to duplicate this slide. I can click here, and let's say I want to delete it. Don't panic, you can't delete it in just one click. We will double check for you, and that way you don't accidentally delete any content that you've created along the way. So I can, of course, say that I'm ready to delete it, and my slide is deleted. Now, this will look exactly the same way if I decide to go back to synchronous mode. So I'll go ahead and do it in front of you now. Instead of asynchronous, I go ahead and click on synchronous, on save, reset. And as you can see, nothing scary because my content, my quiz, everything is still there. The only difference is that I no longer, it's just been reset. So there's no participation or anything, but that wasn't a problem because we hadn't participated yet anyway. So that also looks a lot better. You can go ahead and click on start and your activity will start. You can stop your activity, continue it again, open it back up for your participants. You can click on reset if you want to take it back to 0 and reset it, start from scratch. And of course, same goes here. If you want to edit your activity, click on that little pencil and the editing panel will appear once more. All right, so keep in mind, word cloud quiz and surveys. These are the ones that got the major upgrade when it comes to activity preview and autosave. Every other activity, these are things that we're working on. So this is a feature that will gradually extend to all activities moving forward. So you should see more activities getting that preview over the next couple of weeks and months. So keep an eye out for that. But right now we're really looking at the word cloud, the quiz, and the survey. All right, any questions? Now I see that I did answer that. So synchronous, asynchronous, which is perfect. So I think everyone is on the same page. Great. And now the last thing that I wanted to show you today was score visualization. So what we did is recently we've redesigned how scores display during your session. Now, what is a score? Well, this is what I was saying previously, when you create an activity in Beekast, you can create what we like to call evaluation activities. And when you create an evaluation activity, that activity you can give a score. And this means that when your participant answers correctly, they will earn points. And you get to decide how many points they will earn. Now, before, as the owner of a session, as a facilitator, but also as a participant, that score wasn't always very easy to see. So we got a lot of feedback saying, sometimes I go through the entire session and I have no idea what my score is. I don't know how I'm doing. And even as an owner, I can't even see my score in all of this or how many points are actually associated in my session. So we've made this much easier by just redesigning how scores display in your session. And basically this positioning and the change of color is supposed to make it a lot easier for both facilitators and participants to track progress results just at a glance. So just create a more engaging experience along the way. And your score, as you can see, is now available here. So let's say you partake in a quiz. So I'll just go ahead and launch it. Take part. Let's say I get question B and I click on submit. As you can see, I got the correct answer and my score has now gone 3 for 3 because I've gotten all the scores, all the points that are available in this session. Now let's say I duplicate this. As you can see, my score is now 3 out of 6 because I still have points to earn in my session. And by clicking, I can go ahead and click on my score and I'll get to see that I have one question that was answered that I got right, and I have one question that right now remains unanswered, and so I haven't earned any points yet. So let's say I launch this session, and this time I get it wrong, so I'll go ahead and submit it. As you can see, my score hasn't changed, but I can see as a participant that I have gotten this answer wrong. So this just makes it so much easier to track your score along the way. It's a lot easier for the owner, a lot easier for the participants. As an owner and facilitator, your score will be here. For participants, their score will actually be here next to their avatar. So it's actually just slightly different, but it looks exactly the same. It's this little box right here, this little rectangle with my score following the current score that the participant has. And it'll be right here next to their little avatar picture right here. All right, that's all that I had to show you today. I hope that you enjoyed this webinar, that I was able to give you a lot of new updates and ideas on how you can use Beekast and really show you how easier this entire experience has become, where you can really create a session in seconds, in a couple clicks, and then you can start adding your content, and even creating activities now is becoming so much simpler with autosave and activity preview, which are really cool features that I hope you'll enjoy along the way. All right, everybody. Thank you. I see that there aren't any questions. Thank you for your thumbs up, for your participation in the chat along the way. And I guess I'll see you next month for another What's New in Beekast webinar. Make sure to keep signing up to stay in touch and stay updated on everything that's happening in the product. I'll see you next time. Thank you, everyone.